Dear chess friends, in this video I'm going to show you how you can crush your opponent very quickly. And there's no better way to illustrate my point just by showing you a game played by Magnus Carlsen. He is playing with the white pieces against a young grandmaster from India. His name is Pranesh. But what happens in this game is actually very easy to apply in your own games as well. That's why I want to show you this game. And before we are diving straight into the action, just make sure to subscribe to the channel, guys. Thanks for all the support. Also for all your PayPal donations. Really appreciate it. It helps to grow the channel and it also motivates me to show you more interesting chess content. Well, here we go. Magnus Carlsen is playing with white. It's an online game. It's a blitz game. 3 minutes for both players. And Magnus starts the game with 1e4. e5, knight f3, knight c6, bishop c4, the Italian opening, knight f6, white plays pawn to d3, protecting the pawn on e4, bishop c5, and now the move knight c3. This is actually very interesting because in my last video there was also one game of Magnus Carlsen and it was an absolutely brilliant swindle by the GOAT. It was not an attacking game. He also played that move knight c3 in that particular case. Well, a lot of things happened in that game. Black played here the move a6, but for this occasion, Pranesh plays the other move, h6, which is also a very typical and logical move because Black is anticipating the move bishop g5. So then the bishop is pinning the knight on f6 as Black is having some problems facing the threat of knight d5. That's why the pawn is on h6 to cover the g5 square. Well, Black, after the move h6, now we'll have to deal with a different approach by white. As white goes for the move bishop e3, attacking the bishop. And of course there are different ways to play here. You can drop back with the bishop to b6. You can move it away to b4. You can also take on e3. And when this happens, I always really enjoy the ensuing positions for white. White, of course, is going to recapture with the pawn. And these double pawns, they're actually quite good. Because after the move d6, white is going to castle and there's a half open f-file to work with. And this is something I teach most of my students who are new to the game. I think it's an easy way to complete your development as both your knights and the bishop on c4, they are well developed. And the next part of the plan usually is to bring your king into safety and try to activate your major pieces. How to activate major pieces? Give them open files. So here is the half open f-file and white is gonna make use of it. Well, there followed the move bishop e6, so taking away the pressure against the pawn on f7. There were no immediate threats, but of course if you do take on e6, Black can take back and the symmetry has been restored. There's not much going on here. Black is absolutely okay. He's gonna castle next as well. But Magnus has a very interesting idea. He played here the move knight to d5. And that also puts a bit more pressure on the knight on f6. I mean, the knight is still defended, but in combination with the rook on f1, some action may happen very soon. Obviously, taking with the knight on d5 is a huge blunder as it runs into pawn takes and it's a double attack. White is winning a piece. So that's also, of course, an important trick worth remembering. Instead, Black decided here to take with the bishop. And now pawn takes d5. I mean, you could have taken with the bishop as well, but who knows, maybe this bishop is still needed later. After pawn takes d5, white, of course, is hitting the knight on c6. So the knight goes back to e7. And, well, Black is actually threatening now to take the pawn on d5. Both knights are hitting that pawn. So white played here the move e4. So what should we think of this position? Because the bishop on c4, it's not looking too great. I mean, the center has been closed. And therefore, the bishop is unable to put any pressure against the pawn on f7, for instance. But still, I think that white is having a very pleasant position here with good chances to build up some nice attack. How it goes, we will figure out very soon. Black castled kingside, logical move. And now, interesting idea by white as white played the move knight h4. Remember this idea? It's a very important move because the knight on h4 is not badly placed at all. Sometimes knights on the rim are not grim at all. One of the ideas is that the knight can always come into f5, but possibly even stronger are ideas based on the exchange sacrifice. Rook takes f6, opening up black's kingside. Then black will have to recapture with the pawn, but after that, black is having a very hard time to defend its kingside. The queen will come to h5, the rook will come to f1, with very dangerous attacking prospects. In any case, black understood the threat. Played here the move knight g6, attacking the knight on h4. And also the queen is supporting the other knight on f6. So the exchange sacrifice is not dangerous here at all. What is white going to do? If white takes on g6, this double pawn is not a problem at all. In fact, we may end up in some sort of scenario of a good knight versus a bad bishop. I don't like white's bishop at all. Position is closed, pawns are fixed, so it will be very difficult for white to improve that particular piece. So instead of trading off one pair of knights, Magnus played a much better move as he went for the move knight f5. A beautiful square for the knight. It's a really good attacking piece. And I think it was Garry Kasparov who once said that a knight on f5 is worth a pawn. He was referring to a totally different position. I think it was a Ruy Lopez game. But you can see that the knight is already looking in the direction of the black king. And if black is gonna play in a slow way, just play a random move. I mean, white has a very simple plan of bringing his troops to the party. Queen can come to f3, maybe to g3, maybe rook f2, rook a f1. So you can triple down the f-file and later on, maybe some sacrifices on g7 or h6. Lot of interesting ideas thanks to the knight on f5. And last but not least, when your major pieces are concentrated on that part of the board, you may even think about pushing your pawns in front of the king. Just not playing for any sort of sacrifice, but just try to open up files just by trading off pawns. So, lot of play for white, and therefore I believe the position is very easy to play. Of course, Pranesh understands very well that the knight on f5 is a dangerous piece. He wanted to trade it off with knight e7, but this is a huge mistake. Remember this pattern, guys, because obviously, if black is able to trade off that knight, black is doing fine. But now the knight is back on e7. The queen on d8 is no longer supporting the knight on f6. So here the key move, the winning idea is knight takes h6 with check. White is winning a pawn. It's with check. If you do take the knight, there is rook takes f6. And, well, you win a pawn. And very soon the other pieces will come over very soon as well. So black instead played here the move king h7. Now I was wondering, is it really a blunder or it was just a conscious decision by Pranesh to play the move king h7, intending to take that knight with the king? I mean, things are in any case much better for white. If white is just going back with a knight, you can trade off one pair of knights, but the position is not the same. The pawn on h6 is gone, so white is still having very nice attacking prospects. But the killer move here, and that's typical for Magnus. He is not interested in the material. He is playing against the black king. So therefore, he eliminates the main defender with stunning exchange sacrifice. Rook takes f6. Brilliant idea. And now black has a choice. He can capture either the rook or the knight. If you take the knight, well, the queen comes in to h5, threatening the pawn on h6 as well. And if you block with knight g6, attacking the rook, well, then it's rook a f1. And the attack is still going on. This is looking absolutely bad for black. So black basically doesn't have a choice. He needs to accept the exchange sacrifice. Decided here to take with the pawn, but now the queen comes in to h5. So setting up a battery with the queen and knight against the black king. So knight takes f7, discover check, hitting the queen on d8 is the main idea. The king goes to g7, and interestingly, things may not look that simple, because who knows, maybe at some point even rook h8 is an idea when black is about to pin the knight on h6 and consolidate his king side. But the attack continues here. There is rook f1. It's the only move, but actually a very natural one. I don't think Magnus had any difficulties to calculate the following lines, because the rook is on its way to hit the black king. Now there are different ways of playing, and one line, which was not played in the game, is knight g6. But then you're surrendering the control over the f5 square. The knight can come back now to f5 without black giving a chance to trade it off. After the king goes back, because it's check, king g8 only move, there is queen h6, and mate cannot be avoided any longer. So that's a beautiful pattern. Here we see the strength of that knight on f5. And if you play, for instance, the move rook h8, which we discussed previously, you're pinning now that knight on h6. But here, the problem is that the rook is no longer defending the pawn on f7. So you can take on f7 with check, king takes h6, and now rook takes f6. You're a rook down, but who cares at all when that rook on a8 is still far away from the action? King g5, queen g7, forcing the king to go to the edge of the board, king h5. And where is the mate? Well, there are different ways of playing. The queen and rook are already doing great, but this bishop wants to join. So d4 is an interesting idea. As I said, this is all analysis, but I think it's very instructive. The bishop is coming to e2. Queen g8, for instance. Now bishop e2 check. The king should go to h4, and then it's g3, pawn check, king h3, and then it's bishop f1, for instance, with checkmate. The remaining squares are taken away by the white pieces. So let's get back to the game. You understand how strong white's attack in reality is. I mean, in the game they follow the move queen to e8. So the idea is to protect the pawn on f7, preparing that idea of rook h8 without giving white a chance to take with the queen on f7. But now another stunning idea by Magnus Carlsen. He played here the move knight f5, and this is maybe something you thought this was not possible. After knight takes f5, after all, pieces are coming off the board. But you're not going to take back with the rook, because there's maybe rook h8 and the rook comes to h6. Things are not so clear. If you take with the queen, I mean, you're about to take on f6 very soon. White's position is very good, but we don't want a good position. We want a position which is absolutely game over. And therefore, and that's what you always have to think about, rather than automatically recapturing, think about the intermediate moves, the Zwischenzugs of this world. They are so important. And with the move queen g4, you're not giving black a chance at all to consolidate the position of the black king. The king can only go to the h-file. So king h7 was played, but then it's rook takes f5. The rook comes in, and now you understand the difference. Whatever black is going to play on the next move, there is rook h5 with checkmate, ladder mate on the g and h file. And here you see the black major pieces had no chance at all to help the black king. I thought this was a very instructive game and easy to learn. So hopefully you agree with me on that. You can apply this same idea yourself as well. You just play the Italian opening, you get your knight out, your bishop out, also the other knight comes into play, and then very soon you can put your bishop on e3, and you see that after the exchange of bishops, you get a very nice position with an half open f-file, and well, many games have been won in this way. So hopefully you like this video. Give this video a like. Don't forget to do that. Also hit the subscribe button. Thanks for all the support. Very soon, many more videos on this channel. Bye bye.